Good afternoon. Today, the committee is pleased to welcome Gene Dodaro, the Comptroller General of the United States and head of the Government Accountability Office. Mr. Dodaro is here to discuss GAO's high-risk report. GAO issues this report at the beginning of each Congress to highlight programs that are most vulnerable to waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement. The high-risk report also recommends solutions to save taxpayer funds, improve public services, and hold our government accountable. Over the past 13 years, improvement to high-risk programs have saved us nearly $350 billion, or about $27 billion a year. Improving high-risk programs can have a very real effect on Americans' lives. If implemented correctly, this year's recommendations would improve the health care for veterans, protect Americans from toxic chemicals, make our food safer, help stem the deadly tide of opioid addiction, which we will be addressing tomorrow. And Mr. Dodaro, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I want to thank all the people that are here with you and those that are in your office for all the hard work that you do in a very nonpartisan way and the professionalism that you all bring to the job. We know that when you issue a report, you dot your I's, you cross your T's, and you give us information that is indeed usable. And so, on behalf of a grateful Congress, I thank you. Today, we will discuss many issues, and I'd like to highlight a few, and I want you to listen up, because this is important information. First, inaction on climate change. Perhaps the most concerning issue in this year's report relates to climate change. According to this report, the Trump administration, and I quote, I didn't say this, GAO said this, has not made measurable progress since 2017 to reduce its fiscal exposure to climate change, and in some cases has revoked prior policies designed to do so, end of quote. Instead of confronting this existential threat with science and ingenuity, the President is denying the threat, and the problem exists and it continues. He revoked President Obama's climate action plan and is now creating a new White House panel to counter the idea that burning fossil fuels is harming the planet. Inadequate strategy for cybersecurity. Today's report also warns that the Trump administration lacks a comprehensive strategy to address cybersecurity threats across the Federal government. Inexplicably, the President eliminated the cybersecurity coordinator position at the White House last year. These are the facts, leaving our Federal government without any White House leader devoted to protecting us with regard to cybersecurity. GAO report calls on Federal agencies to take, quote, urgent actions, end of quote, to address this threat, which could affect our nation's most closely held secrets, our energy grid, our banks, our communication systems, and nearly every aspect of Americans' lives. Today's report also warns that the Trump administration, quote, has not established measures to ensure quality of background and investigations and adjudications, end of quote, for security clearances, and faces, listen to this one, and faces a current backlog of 565,000 security clearance applications. Let that sink in. Instead of fixing these problems, the President, unfortunately, has undermined the security clearance process. According to recent reports, he ignored the concerns of his own White House advisors, career national security officials, to give his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, a security clearance. Today's report also highlights the risks facing the upcoming census, which is of special interest to our committee. The report highlights rising costs, hundreds of unresolved security weaknesses, a scaled-back testing under the Trump administration that, quote, increases the risk that innovations in IT systems will not function as intended during the 2020 census, end of quote. I didn't say that. GAO said it. Today's report also highlights the epidemic of drug addiction in this country, which is one of this committee's highest priorities. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 70,000 people, the number of people that will fit into Raven Stadium in my district, Americans died from drug overdoses in 2017. About 191 people die every day in this country. Yet the President had no national drug control strategy or White House drug czar for the past 2 years. GAO has identified this as a, quote, emerging issue requiring close attention, end of quote. We're holding a hearing on this topic tomorrow with the Director of the Office of National Drug Control Policy and experts from GAO. Today's report provides a roadmap for improving our Federal government. But GAO's recommendations can be turned to effective reforms only with the cooperation and leadership from the President and executive branch agencies. Unfortunately, President Trump and the White House have refused to even cooperate with GAO. Refuse to even cooperate with them so they can get, I want you to talk about that because that's important. If we can't get information, we can't do our job. If we can't get information, we can't hold the executive branch accountable, which we have sworn to do, and which is mandated under the Constitution of the United States of America. Last year, GAO sent an extraordinary letter to the White House counsel expressing concern that the White House officials, quote, listen to this, will not respond to inquiries or otherwise engage with GAO staff during the course of our reviews. Wow. The letter noted, and I quote, this approach represents a clear departure from past practice, end of quote. Nevertheless, the obstruction has continued. Last month, GAO issued a report finding the President spent $13.6 million of taxpayer money on trips to Mar-a-Lago. The White House refused to provide any information to assist with GAO's review. GAO is part of the legislative branch, and the White House refuses to cooperate with GAO's request is an insult to this Congress. We will be following up directly with the White House, of course, and I look forward to hearing today from Mr. DiDardo on each of these issues and many others. I also look forward to the continuing work to work closely with GAO and our colleagues to hold our federal government accountable to the American people.